What a weekend up in Albany, New York. Rand Pechtold and the men's hockey team were searching for a ticket to warm and sunny Tampa Bay. Junior assistant captain and standout forward Sam Annis was questionable for the weekend. Are the Bobcats headed to the Frozen Four?
And MJ, spring has sprung, and that means the softball and baseball teams are getting ready to take the diamond.
Don't go anywhere. This is Bobcat Breakdown. Hello, Bobcat Nation. Welcome into Studio 125, the home of Q30 Television. I'm MJ Baird.
And I'm John Franklin. And MJ, it's a special edition of Bobcat Breakdown with two bow tie guys at the desk. Two.
That's right, John. Lots of hockey content on the show today, so let's jump right into it.
The men's ice hockey team traveled to Albany, New York for its regional bracket in hopes of getting to its first Frozen Four since 2013. The Bobcats beat the Rochester Institute of Technology 4-0 in the next round. They then took on Hockey East foe UMass Lowell. The Bobcats would take that one 4-1, punching a ticket for a flight to Tampa for the Frozen Four. MJ, you were at the regional this weekend. What did you take away from the Bobcats' performance?
You know, these two games this weekend were two very good games played by Quinnipiac. We'll start with the RIT game, chronological order. The first period of that game, RIT looked pretty good. In my opinion, Quinnipiac was a little bit on their heels. They didn't, I don't want to say they took RIT lightly because Rand Pechtold stressed they did not take RIT lightly, but it was 1-0 after the first period, and RIT looked like they might hold their own in that game, and after that, it was all Quinnipiac. 4-0 was the final, but I do give RIT credit. They upset the #1 seed last year. They were looking to do the same again this year. It just didn't happen. Quinnipiac got the better of them, as they should have.
I mean, I totally agree with you. I think the Bobcats had started off very slow, and that's been a big question mark for the Bobcats from the start of the season. I think the key was my dad watching as a fan.
Yep.
He's watching, he's looking at the game, and he says, they just look slow in the first period. And obviously you were there, you got to watch them,
Right.
You've been covering the team all year, and you've seen it. But then you go forward, you move forward, and they looked unstoppable by the end of the game. They looked ridiculous, out of their mind.
That's a good point, too. I do think they were slow and not moving their feet, and I don't really know what you can contribute that to because, you know, they should be ready. It's the NCAA tournament. But they were slow in the first period, but I guess all in the end that matters. They got it going in the second and third, walked away with 4-0. The open net goal by Soren Janssen at the end sealed the deal. Let's move on to Sunday, though.
Sunday, big one. Annis was a question mark coming into that one, obviously. And you weren't really sure what was going to happen, especially watching it from my perspective. I know you were there. There were a lot of questions. But they looked good again.
Right. UMass Lowell, a Hockey East team that, you know, they can do damage. All the Hockey East teams can do damage. And when Quinnipiac as an ECAC team has to come in and face that, it's tough. But they did their job. You know, the first period, UMass Lowell had this style of play that Quinnipiac wasn't really expecting. At least I think so. It was UMass Lowell stretching the neutral zone, forcing Quinnipiac to play off of their game. 1-0 UMass Lowell after one period, and Bobcat fans are thinking, yep, this is the Hockey East team we're expecting. And then, boom, second period comes around, kill a penalty off, and then you score 4 goals from there.
I mean, that was the big thing, though, the power play, the penalty kill. Because the first goal by Lowell was scored on the power play.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing. Quinnipiac giving up chippy, stupid penalties early on in the game. If Lowell puts in that second goal on that power play, then the Bobcats are on their heels.
Things are different.
Yeah, absolutely. But then they kill it off. Momentum swings in their direction like any other hockey game in any situation ever. When you kill off a penalty like that, a big penalty like that, it could turn the game around.
Not to mention, too, penalties on Sam Annis, his second of the game. He's not a player who's in the box a lot, only 6 penalty minutes on the year. So definitely a frustrated Annis, and he comes out, contributes for the Landon Smith first goal.
Absolutely.
So, John, the $1 million question going into the weekend, as we talked about a little bit, was, is Sam Annis going to play? Well, he was a game-time decision both days, but he ended up playing in both. Do you think this Sam Annis injury is a serious issue for the Bobcats moving forward?
Moving forward, I'm still going to say yes. It's hard to deal with having your star player go down hurt, but they did have players fill in and play strong for him. Travis St. Dennis, he scored 2 goals on the weekend. Connor and Tim Clifton fill in a little bit, but I still think the Annis injury moving forward is going to be huge, especially against the Boston College team with some highly touted players like Alex Tuck and Colin White.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest with you, John, I I agree with that they got the depth, but I disagree that it's this huge big deal. I don't think it's that big a deal. Personally, I think the injury might have been overhyped a little bit. We didn't hear anything from any of the players or head coach Rand Pecknold throughout the week, and then you see he's a game-time decision. You got to think, a junior, the leading point scorer, leading goal getter, he's going to play in the NCAA tournament. Is he 100%? Maybe not. But he went out there Saturday, didn't look like his normal self, I'll admit that. He was shying away from plays along the boards. He wasn't his normal, upbeat, fast-skating, willing to get the puck player. But on Saturday, that all changed. He knew winner-go-home game, again, against UMass Lowell, and he just went out there. He was actually initiating body contact in that game. And I looked at that and I said, I wouldn't expect that from someone who's injured, at least someone who's not playing at least 75, 80%. So I think it was a little overhyped. You said it. They have the depth, 14 other players with double-digit points on the season. I think they should be fine moving forward. That being said, BC is a great opponent. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, MJ, slow starts and the Bobcats have been synonymous this year. Do you think that's something Rand Pecknold's team should worry about moving forward?
Coming into this weekend, I was concerned about it. And I was said, multiple times, they just are lazy, tired, asleep. I don't know what it is in the first period. They're just not playing Quinnipiac hockey. And they say that. They admit to it. They go into the first intermission, get back to their style, their identity, and they're good the rest of the game. Coming into this weekend, I was thinking, NCAA tournament time, you can't have that. You go down 1 or 2 goals early to a team, that could be the end of it. And really, they changed my mind because, you said it in the RIT game. I mentioned it in the UML game. After one in the UML game, they were down 1-0. UMass Lowell scored that power play goal, and you thought, or personally I thought, Quinnipiac could be out of this game already if they don't figure something out. The UMass Lowell style of play was really confusing the Bobcats. The defenders, not able to join the rush that much. And coming out in the second period, we said it with that penalty kill, and from there, they just took it and ran. They took the momentum, they used it, and they were successful. So going into this weekend, I was concerned with the slow starts. Moving forward, I think it's just something this team has to deal with. Every team has a little flaw. For Quinnipiac, for whatever reason, it's they don't start the game too strong. But going forward, if they just pick it up the way they have been, I think it should be fine.
See, to me, I don't think it's as much the slow starts as them playing down to their opponents. Because a lot of times, I know the talent pool in the tournament is a lot greater, but this year we saw a few times, Maine was a good example. They played down to a team that they should beat. And I think that's a big situation that the Bobcats need to step up in. Maybe it helps them play better come tournament time. But when you come in, you're playing RIT, and you're only up 1-0 at the end of one, Rand Pecknold's got to be thinking, what do I do to get my team back into it, back into that mindset of that killer instinct of putting the puck in the back of the net, like a Quinnipiac team is used to doing, putting the puck in the back of the net, burying teams early, get the game over with so it could just be done over, move on to the next round.
And I think that's a good point, playing down to your opponent. But, Quinnipiac only has 3 losses on the year. 2 of those losses, they were not down after the first period. The BU game, BU is definitely not a team Quinnipiac would have been playing down to at the time. Cornell was the other game they weren't losing after the first. St. Lawrence game, they were losing after one, went on to lose the game. So even when they're down after one, the resiliency of this team to come back, there's something going on there, but they have a spark. When they find themselves down, they come back and they want to win the games. All right, John, let's move on a little bit. There was a lot of talk throughout the second half of the semester. The Bobcats' play was declining. It wasn't what it was up to in the first half. But since the loss to Cornell in the ECAC quarters, the Bobcats, they haven't lost. And these are winner-go-home games. Would you say that this team's peaking at the right time?
Oh, absolutely. I think that this team has such a good chance to win the entire tournament, not even just beat BC. BC is going to be a tough task. They're a very good team, obviously.
Right.
But they're very evenly matched with BC, especially between the pipes. Thatcher Demko against Michael Gartig. It's going to be a fun matchup to watch, but they're definitely peaking at the right time. Kind of seeing hints of that 2013 team.
Right.
Maybe going to be the same ending, maybe a different ending.
Right.
We're not sure yet.
So, I couldn't agree with you more. This team is playing great hockey right now, and it's something about a winner-go-home game. These seniors, Travis St. Dennis, Soren Janssen, they just don't want to lose, and that's the mindset you have to have. Like, we've talked about it before. Teams that play well at the end of the year are the teams that do the best. Yeah, Quinnipiac may not have played great at the end of the year, but right now they're proving that they have what it takes. They've gotten to Tampa for the Frozen Four. Who's to say they can't make it 1 more win, 2 more wins, and they're national champions? I'll go back to the UMass Lowell game one more time. UMass Lowell scored 3 minutes into the game. about 10 minutes into the first, the rest of the second, the rest of the third, that's 50 minutes of play. They might have been the 50 best minutes of hockey I've seen this team play. They adjusted on the move to UMass Lowell's style. They changed the way they were operating their offense because now the defensemen are out of the play for the most part, needing to cover the UML forwards. If Quinnipiac is able to adjust on the fly to whatever they see from BC, whatever BC comes out with, fast flying in the first, I don't see this team having trouble getting to the national final.
And the one thing that we're not touching on that we absolutely should is that Quinnipiac just wears teams down.
It's a great point.
Their depth is unbelievable. I think that's going to be key getting into a BC game where they have talented players but not as much depth as QU. How do they wear them down and end up taking that game is going to be very interesting to watch.
Very interesting indeed. John, when we come back, Kirby Paulson is in the house to give us his take on the Frozen Four matchups.
And the women's softball season is well underway. No postseason appearances since joining the MAC. Is this season the first year? We'll discuss. Don't go anywhere. Bobcat Breakdown will be right back.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services, from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike's sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken and cheese for just over $4. Giant cheesesteak subs and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q Cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
Thanks for sticking with us here on Bobcat Breakdown. And now we would like to welcome in Boston's own Kirby Paulson. Kirby, how are you?
MJ, Johnny, how's it going?
Great, Kirby, thanks. I know, Kirby, that you've covered a lot of Hockey East hockey spanning over a long period of time, including seeing BC. Given what you already know about them, what are your takeaways from BC's performance last weekend in the Northeast Regional?
Well, I think Boston College played really well in a very good regional bracket. You got to remember they had to play both Harvard and Minnesota Duluth. And Harvard, you're getting a big offensive juggernaut. With Duluth, you're getting a grinding team. So I really think we saw the true character of the Eagles come out, especially after struggling a little bit in the Hockey East tournament. Guys like Thatcher Demko, one of the Hobie Baker candidate finalists, he came up huge, made some incredible saves to make sure his team was maintaining the lead. Again, they didn't give up a lead at any point during the weekend. And the defense, which was questioned during the offseason on their strength and whether they would be able to keep up with some of these bigger teams, was able to really hold it down for them.
Yeah, you know, Kirby, Barry Melrose really harping on those striped pads of Thatcher Demko's. What weaknesses does BC have, and what does Quinnipiac need to do to exploit that?
Well, I think a lot of times at Boston College, especially with as much talent as they have about, I believe it's 12 NHL draft picks. You're dealing with a lot of players that want to be too fancy with the puck. They want to do too much with it. So I think when they're trying to get fancy and they're trying to do things like that, you can almost force the turnover and look for their mistakes, things like that. Be able to force their pressure up, especially when they lose sight of their own fundamentals. That's really something that the Bobcats are going to have to look for to try to get opportunities going the other way.
Kirby, as we all know, the Frozen Four, it's a whole new level of hockey, knowing that sometimes one player can make or break the way a team will fare. Are there any key matchups you see that in this game that could really swing things one way or the other for Quinnipiac or for BC?
Well, I think it would be really hard to ignore the fact that Michael Gottig and Thatcher Demko, that entire matchup is going to be extremely entertaining. We got two of the best goaltenders in the country right now. Gatik had an incredible weekend up in Albany. And of course, you got Thatcher Demko, who, in my opinion, has been the best goaltender in the entire college hockey. The thing is, though, Thatcher Demko has struggled, especially with more mobile offenses and aggressive shot taking. So if the Bobcats can continue to get shots on and use a mobile offense and move the puck around quite a bit, I think he's going to have a little bit more trouble, and Gatik might actually have the upper edge here.
Kirby, real question is, do you think the Frozen Four experience for both these programs will factor into the outcome of this game?
Well, Johnny, you got to remember, Boston College, especially under Jerry York, has, I believe, 4 national championships. That does play a bit of, it does make a difference. I think Boston College has won a national championship in Tampa, but you got to remember something. Quinnipiac has played extremely well against some pretty darn good teams, especially in that regional. I think that was a big, huge, almost defining moment for their team, especially their dominating performance against UMass Lowell. If they can get on the board early and they can really make it seem, I don't think experience is going to end up playing if the Bobcats can get their legs under them early in the game.
Kirby, one more question for you, a quick one. Me and John were talking about how, early starts for this Quinnipiac team have been an issue. Do you foresee that being an issue against a BC team?
I don't. I think the Bobcats will be able to pick it up. I think it would be nice to get an early start. I think especially against the BC team that likes to use their aggressive defensive style and apply pressure and take away the outs. I think for a team like the Bobcats, they're going to want to try to get some points on the board, but I don't necessarily think that that's going to play much of a difference. I still think Quinnipiac will be able to come back if they're down in a situation. At the same time, though, it's always nice to get a few on the board.
Thanks, Kirby. We appreciate you sharing your hockey knowledge with us today. So, John, let's shift things now to spring sports. Jill Karwoski and her softball team are 23 games deep, but yet to touch conference play. What are your thoughts on the season so far?
I mean, right away, team's 9-14, just under 500. They're on a 2-game losing streak, but they're only pitching 2 girls.
Right.
That's outstanding to me. I know I grew up a baseball guy, so I don't really know much about the whole fundamentals of pitching and softball. Yeah. But when I see the numbers, 70 innings for Sydney Roby and 72 1/3 innings for Casey Herzog, that's mind-boggling to me. That's just ridiculous, taxing on anyone's body regardless of the mechanics of pitching.
I completely agree, and to be honest, I'll take it a step further. This is an issue for this team. 2 pitchers, I mean, you have double headers. You got both pitchers going one day, and sometimes it's a third game, not on the same day, obviously, but the next. You don't really have a star pitcher that you're going with. And if Jill Karwoski only has these 2 the whole year, we have Kendall Brundett with only 10 innings pitched. That 23 games into the season, you need a little more experience for that, for when you do hit MAC play.
And MJ, touching on that, it's not like they're pitching poorly. They're pitching very well. Their ERA is just over 3. Records 3-7 for Sydney Roby, 5-7 for Herzog. But that hasn't been because of their pitching, obviously. The hitting just hasn't been there.
Right. I completely agree. You were saying it there, the ERA is just over 3, but only 5 games this season has Quinnipiac scored more than 3 runs. And if you look at those 5 games, 4 out of the 5 they won. So, I mean, they can get those ERAs down a little bit more, but as you said, this hitting just gets up to 1-2 more runs a game, this team could really excel.
I mean, look at them comparatively against the conference in the hitting categories. 3rd lowest in batting average. They're 5th lowest in home runs with just 5 on the season, 5th lowest in runs with 57. The run support just isn't there for these 2 pitchers. Whether you have 2 pitchers, 3, 4, a whole staff of 5, you need to be able to hit the ball and put runs on the board. You could have a star pitcher in baseball or softball go 9 innings scoreless, but once it gets to the 10th inning and they have to come out of the game and you can't score a run to put it over the edge, that's it. It's over. Right,
and you said it, they haven't played MAC conference games yet, but they're going to need to get the hitting up quickly for when they do play those MAC opponents. I mean, Marist, Fairfield, Iona, they're good conference opponents, and they only play each other 2 times a year. What that means, it's a doubleheader. So, for example, if they're playing Marist on the road, they're playing a doubleheader, and they don't see them the rest of the season. So if they lose those 2 games, that's 2 conference losses right there before they even blink an eye. And it could be the pitchers could pitch outstanding, but they don't put any runs on the board. That's going to be an issue.
Absolutely. And you look at their first MAC matchup, they're a little lucky. April 2nd against Canisius. Canisius is 7-20 on the season. They're not doing so hot. Their pitching's not that great with a 4.25 ERA. Very favorable for the Bobcats. So maybe that's where they look to get their hitting up.
Maybe the first game they steal 2 wins from Canisius. There you go. You got a 2-0 start, and you can just run from there.
Absolutely.
We're going to step away for just a moment, but when we return, we're sticking to the diamond. We'll dig into the baseball season so far and shed light upon the upcoming conference play.
Plus, who has shined and who should take a seat on the pine. MJ and I give you our sit down and step up players of the week. Keep it locked here on Bobcat Breakdown.
Welcome to A Sheer Sensation, North Haven's premier cosmetology service, located at 140 Washington Avenue, minutes from Hamden. We offer an array of services from basic cuts and colors to lash extensions and formaldehyde-free keratin treatments. We also provide hair chalk and styling for men. When you spend $60, your Q card will get you 10% off. Call us at 203-239-6477 to make your next appointment at A Sheer Sensation.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken and cheese for just over $4. Giant cheesesteak subs and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
Welcome back to Breakdown. The Quinnipiac baseball team has taken a bit of a stumble out of the gate. It poses just a 6-14 overall record, including a loss in its first and only home game thus far against Yale. The Bobcats traveled to Poughkeepsie, New York this week for a 3-game set against Marist. The Bobcats were swept by the Red Foxes in the team's first MAC series. MJ, what can we take away from this series moving forward?
John, I don't think this is good at all for the Bobcats. Swept in your first conference series, that could be an issue. You know, it's a 3-game series, a doubleheader on the Saturday, the single game on Thursday. Marist isn't a great team. You know, they're a bubble team. They made the playoffs last year, didn't make it 2 years ago. Quinnipiac made it both times, closer to the top of the seeding. I think this could be an issue for the team.
I think if you take a look at last year, that's where you're going to find why this is going to be such an issue for this team. They were 4-14 last year right before the Yale game. They go on the road. They beat Yale 11-3. Big statement from that team last year. Took 2 out of 3 from Siena. The series after that's another MAC series. Then 2 out of 3 from Monmouth at Monmouth. The team had some tough on-the-road matchups, but they were able to come into conference play and get the wins they needed to get. And this team this year is just not doing it right now.
Yeah, you know, we'll talk about it in just a second about the long stint of non-MAC games on the road, but the fact that this is the first MAC series of the year, they needed to make a statement. They got outscored 15-4. They didn't even score in the second game on Saturday. I mean, I wouldn't say that you can just, quote-unquote, throw this season in the trash. No, we're not going that far, but just they need to do something quick to turn around for MAC play moving forward. I mean, you said it. Getting the next 3-game series, they take all 3, that's one thing. Then they're looking at 3-3 in the MAC. But they need to do something, and they need to do it fast.
I think the big thing that stands out to me is how flip-flopped the baseball team is as opposed to the softball team. Their pitching hasn't been there. They have a team ERA of 6.50, and their stud freshman, Andrew Workman, at a 12.10 ERA, just 9 innings pitched. That's brutal. That's rough.
Tough. That's tough. I mean, I guess you could just toss that up as he's a freshman, but this team was picked at the beginning of the year as the team to beat in the MAC. And I'll harp on it again, but losing the 3-game series as the team to beat in the MAC, I mean, yes, the hockey team dealt with this all year. They're the quote-unquote best team. They got this target on their back. Everyone wants to give them their best. But, I mean, preseason players of the year, Matthew Batten and Thomas Jenkins on the team to beat, and then they go ahead and they get swept. If they weren't swept, I don't think we'd be having this conversation, but they were, so I think that's why we are.
I think another thing we're not really talking about for this pitching staff, at least, is they can't throw strikes. And I know growing up, my dad always told me, You got to throw strikes to win the game. You got 27 wild pitches and 80 walks. You're D1
rough.
pitchers,
It's
fellas.
rough.
Throw the ball in the strike zone.
So, I mean, John, these consecutive long-distance road trips, Virginia, Florida, et cetera, to begin the season, do you think they're going to cause any issues for this team in the long run?
Yes and no. I think it definitely helps that they're playing a tougher talent pool down south, especially games against Virginia Tech when they come in and they win it 4-2.
Right.
But does it help when your overall record is taking that much of a blow when you're trying to maybe make a national tournament? That's where I think it's going to really hurt this team and plague them moving forward. It'll help in conference play. You're seeing like 95-mile-an-hour fastballs down south. You're seeing some great pitching, great fielding, great hitting. The talent pool's a little better. It'll help the Bobcats, but definitely hurt them record-wise.
See, the only thing I'm seeing from this, they do this every year. I mean, the fields aren't even ready up here at the beginning of the season. They're going down south, the Floridas, the Virginias, the Georgias, et cetera. This shouldn't be a problem for them. Like you said, they're playing some really good out-of-conference talent. So the losses are not something that we should be worried about because as we've seen in the past, they've lost early, come back in conference play and do well. So, I mean, yeah, is it a problem? No, I don't think it's a problem. Is it going to hurt the record? Yes, but in the end, the MAC record's all that really matters.
I mean, if they're going to lose and they're going to put up 3-4 runs against a team down south that's that good, take it with a grain of salt. That's 3 or 4 runs against a very good pitcher, against a very good team. Regardless of what the score is,
For sure.
I think you got to take it, like I said, with a grain of salt. That's going to be huge.
Absolutely. So, John, let's move in to our final segment of the show, Step Up and Sit Down Players of the Week. You start. Why don't you? Who's your step-up player?
Connor Clifton. We talked about it earlier. Sam Addis's injury, huge. Who was going to step in? Clifton did a great job stepping in. He had one of the greatest assists, not only in the NCAA, but I've ever seen watching hockey in my entire life.
ESPN number 2 play that night.
Unbelievable. He stepped into a bigger role. It's going to be fun to see what he does going against BC.
Real quick, too, just to touch on that, he's just been on a tear at the end of the year. Great pick for step up. I'm going to pick another hockey player, Scott Davidson. 1 goal on Saturday, 1 goal on Sunday. Part of this freshman class for Quinnipiac that has just absolutely excelled. Personally, I think they've gone beyond expectations. Rand Pecknold really got lucky. I don't want to say got lucky. It's probably good recruiting, but this freshman class has been absolutely phenomenal. 15 points on the year from Davidson, that is. Aggressive play style. He's turning into a player that I think in the future you could see someone that plays a style like Soren Janssen getting in the corners. Good forechecks, especially playing on the line with Soren and then Tim Clifton too. He's developing that style, but he's also going to put up a lot of points in his career. As I said, 15 as a freshman, and still got 2 games to go.
Flip side, MJ, who are you sitting down?
I'm sitting down the men's baseball team, and we just talked about it. We ranted on it for a little bit. They played some tough opponents.
That's a lot of seats.
That is a lot of seats, John. You're right. Whole team worth of seats. But 6-game losing streak, including what we said, getting swept by Marist. And I think the reason I picked this team is because of that sweep by Marist. As I said, very bad for this team that they got swept, as I said. I mean, I guess you could look at it on the other side, be like, there's a lot of MAC play left, which there is, but 6-game losing streak, I don't like that. You talked about it with the ERA. I'll let you move on to your sit down.
Yeah, and then my sit down is a guy from the baseball team, Andrew Workman. Supposed to be a very good pitcher. I'm sure he is. We just haven't seen it from him yet.
Yep.
12-10 ERA, 0-2 on the year. He's got a .425 batting average against. He's got to get the numbers down a little bit. He only pitched 9 2/3 with that ERA.
Yeah.
Got more walks than strikeouts, 6-4. It's going to be interesting, to say the least, to see what he does moving forward.
You know what? We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he got shelled.
That's fair.
Well,
Maybe
he's
he
a
got
freshman.
shelled.
He's nervous. He got shelled.
All right, fair enough. Well, that's all the time we have for today.
That's right, John. Don't forget to check out our websites at www.q30television.com and www.theqbsn.com.
Plus, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Q30Sports and at QBSN.
Don't forget to pick up a copy of QBSN, the magazine around campus.
For everyone in the control room and on the set, he's MJ Baird. I'm John Franklin. Stay beautiful, Bobcat Nation.